Welcome back, students. So in this session, we'll be continuing with the directive principles of state policy, the rest of the chapter. So we have already covered till the principles promoting economic equality. From today, today we will go forward with Gandhian principles, general principles, differences between fundamental rights and DPSP, implementation of DPSP, significance. So first let's move with Gandhian principles. So what is Gandhian principles? Mahatma Gandhi, we all know that he had played a unique role in the freedom struggle and in the freedom movement, and even after we India attained independence, Gandhiji's ideals play an important role in formulation and working of the constitution and governance. So, the makers of the constitution included Gandhian principles or ideals in the directive principles of state policy. So, the basic principles of Gandhian philosophy are Swaraj or the self-rule, Sarvodaya or welfare for all, and Savalamban, that is self-reliance. So since India is a welfare state, so all of these principles of Gandhiji had been included in uh, in the form of DPSP, which takes care of the fact that the governance or the government works for the people, for the welfare of the people, and for the good of all, by keeping these principles in their mind. So the directive principles of state policy, which are inspired by Gandhian ideals, suggest that the state should promote educational and economic interest of the weaker section with emphasis on the interest of the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. So there had been various reservations made in the field, in every field, for the backward classes, especially the scheduled castes and the scheduled tribes, and the other backward classes also, so that they can overcome their limitations and whatever problems they face, and the weaker sections can come and join the mainstream. So various reservations have been made for them in order to promote education and economic interest to the weaker sections also. Organize panchayat system and extend powers and authority to its members in order to ensure the proper functioning of the local government at the village level, so including people in the local government also, so that the people can take part in the governing process. And panchayat system, we have panchayat system in villages, right? And in cities and towns we have municipal corporation. So including the people in the process of governance, so that the state can work for the welfare of the majority. Then promote cottage industries in the rural areas. So promoting more indigenous industries so that people can become self-reliant. Prohibit consumption of liquor and intoxicating and injurious drugs. Organize agriculture and animal husbandry in a scientific manner. So these are the Gandhian principles that are kept in the mind while making the laws and the policies for governance in India. Now we'll move on to general principles. So what are the general principles? So these principles are related to the category of justice, environment protection, monument preservation, and foreign policy. So for the greater welfare of the state and to preserve our historical relics and preserve our historical heritage, these policies are kept in mind while formulating any laws and policies. So they recommend that the state should secure uniform and liberal code of law for all the citizens. So there should be one uniform law for all the citizens, which will bind the citizen and which will be equal to everyone. There would be no partiality. Then separate judiciary from the executive. Why separate judiciary from the executive? Because if one organ of the government have all the powers, then it can misuse their power, right? So by separating the executive from the judiciary, by separating the executive and the legislature, they uh, the government acts, the other organs of the government acts as checks and balances to each other, so that they can check on the power of other and balance with the power, so that there is no misuse of power, or the misuse of power can be checked. Okay. So, provide equal justice and free legal aid to economically backward classes. Provide free and compulsory education to the children up to 14 years of age. Provide special care for the educational and economic interests for the weaker sections of the society, especially the scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, in order to protect them from social injustice and all forms of exploitation. Then protect monuments and places of artistic or historical importance to preserve our heritage. Then protect and preserve the environment, preserve the forest and the wildlife, promote and respect international peace and security, maintain just and honorable relations between the states. So all this uh, uh, directive principles of state policy, which is from the general principles, takes care of the fact that we have good relations with the other nations, and we protect our own heritage, and we work for the government works for the welfare of the large masses of people. So then we'll move on to the difference between the fundamental rights and DPSP. So what is the basic difference between fundamental rights and DPSP? So fundamental rights are justiciable. So if our fundamental rights have been given by the Constitution of India. So if our fundamental rights are violated by any means, by any authority, then we can move to the court of law and complain that our fundamental rights in such a manner has been violated. But for DPSP, these are not justiciable. We cannot move to a court of law if we find that certain policies have not been taken care of or have been violated, because these are the principles or guidelines that the policymakers should keep in mind while formulating the various laws, or while governing the country or governing any particular state. But since these are non-justiciable, we cannot move to the court of law if we think that the DPSP has been violated. So then fundamental rights are individualistic in nature. All individuals have their own fundamental rights, but the DPSP are not individualistic. They are socialistic in nature. So they think of the whole society or a greater mass of people. Then fundamental rights lay the foundation of political democracy. So since we are in a democratic country, we have been given certain rights by the Constitution of India. But the directive principles of state policy lay the foundation of social and economic democracy. So the social and economic political democracy means we are having the power to rule. We are having the power to choose our leaders who will rule us, who will have a rule over us, or who will take care of the, not rule over us basically, or the rulers chosen by us will take care of the fact that the governance is being done for the welfare of the people, for welfare of us, and they will work on whatever, they will carry forward the wishes of the people. While social and economic democracy means there would be equality of wealth, equal distribution of wealth, economically, everybody should be given equal opportunity. Then people will have equality in terms of they would not be there should not be any impartiality on the basis of caste, creed, religion, gender, anything. So there would be a social and economic democracy which will say that the people will be given equal opportunity, and by the people who are being chosen for the governance. Okay. So fundamental rights are negative in nature as they prohibit the state from doing certain things. So we know that fundamental rights prohibit the state from doing certain things. Like if our fundamental rights are being violated, if certain fundamental rights are not given to us, we can actually move to the court of law. So it prohibits the state from doing certain things, certain particular things. The directive principles are affirmative in nature. They ask the state to do certain things. Some fundamental rights can be suspended during the national emergency, while the directive principles of state policy are not suspended under any condition. So now the implementation of DPSP. So we will study how the DPSP or Directive Principles of State Policy are implemented in our country. So the government of India has been making continuous efforts to implement the directive principles of state policy by various means, by passing various laws, by various means, by various schemes. So it is also extending funds to the communities through local governments or NGOs. So NGOs are being funded by the government, so at certain point of time, like certain amount is funded in order to establish a social security at the local level. Some of the measures taken at the central and state and local level are, we will be studying it. So first is right to education. Right to education means providing free and fair education to all the children till the age of 14. So, catering to the principle of providing free and fair education to the children up to 14 years of age, the government has inserted a new article in the Constitution of India, that is Article 21A. 21A. Okay, so this article makes it a fundamental right of every children from 6 to 14 years of age to have free and fair education. So this is how the right to education, this act has been implemented, but this initially was under the directive principles of state policy, but now it has been included as a new section, a new article in the constitution which provides compulsory free and fair education to the children. Okay, so article 21A has been inserted in the constitution. So then we move on to the next one. So the Scheduled Castes and the Scheduled Tribes Prevention of Atrocities Act. So since they are the backward section of the society, so there have been certain, there can be certain instances in which they will be exploited or they are exploited. So it is aimed at preventing atrocities against scheduled tribes and scheduled castes. So various laws and various policies have been implemented which works for the betterment of the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. Reservations have been made, certain opportunities are been given, certain scholarship systems, certain policies are being implemented for the betterment of the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes so that they are not exploited by the other people. So then Equal Remuneration Act. So this act has been enacted to ensure equal pay for equal work. So equal pay for equal work for both men and women. So this Equal Remuneration Act has been implemented keeping in mind that there is no impartiality on the basis of gender. Okay. Then 73rd and 74th constitutional amendments. These amendments have made it mandatory for the state government to set up local self-governing bodies in the rural and urban areas. So by this constitutional amendment acts, the local and the self-government will be set up, which will include the local people in the governing process so that the governing process is fair and the governing process works, the governance works for the people, for the larger masses of people. Then Project Tiger, this is so it is a wildlife project, wildlife conservation project introduced by the government of India to save the tigers. So through this Project Tiger, there are various, there are so many tiger reserve parks which have been set up all over India and which works for the preservation of tiger and to save the tigers from becoming extinct. So the state also offers various scholarship programs for the minority students, assistance to orphanages, old age home established by the local self-governing bodies, educational vocational assistance to the differently abled students, and programs related to the development of cottage industry among the other welfare schemes. So these are the various welfare schemes for the welfare of the large masses and the welfare of the minority section of the society, so that the governing body or the government works for the betterment of the larger masses, works according to the principles of the welfare state. So last, the significance. So what is the significance of directive principles of state policy? It has been introduced by the central, state, and local governments already. So it is clear that a lot has been done. So after going through the whole chapter, we come to a conclusion that a lot of efforts has been made, a lot has been done to ensure that the principles of the welfare state are properly utilized and are properly followed. But since India is a huge country and with a huge population, there is a lot to achieve till now, because there is a lot of portion, like a lot of portion of India is still coping up with poverty. A lot of people are still, mostly the backward sections of the society are still coping up with their backwardness, and they aren't able to come and join the mainstream even after so many initiatives and schemes. So there exist problems like poverty, unemployment, then poor healthcare facilities, illiteracy. Healthcare facilities also, like everything isn't illiteracy. All of this have not been coped up well till now, even after introducing all these facilities and all these schemes. So the directive principles of state policy serve as a parameter to examine the functioning of the government, and its absolute implementation will transform India into a major power at the global level. So we hope that this directive principle works for the betterment of the nation, and keeps in mind that the state acts for the welfare of the entire nation, for the larger masses of people, and if followed properly or achieved properly, then we can also become one of the major powers at the global level. So this is the end of the chapter. Go through the key terms, and go through the key terms. We'll be discussing about the question answers later. This is it. Thank you.